I've got an important clip from Barr here, and also a little bit about the transcripts that came out about Papadopoulos, and a little bit about Flynn, and lots of other things with data manipulation that we have to talk about. So stick with me, folks, and I'll be back in a minute. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthfication Chronicles, and I've got a little bit of clip here that I wanted to share with you from this Barr interview. It's split into a couple of different parts, and they had the second part tonight, and I'm recording this on Thursday night. So here we go.
What can you tell us about the state of John Durham's investigation? People have been waiting for the final report on what happened with this. What can you tell us?
Well, I think a report, may be and probably will be a byproduct of his activity, but his primary focus isn't to prepare a report. He is looking to bring to justice people who were engaged in abuses if he can show that they were criminal violations, and that's what the focus is on. And as you know, being a lawyer yourself, building these cases, especially the sprawling case we have between us that went on for 2 or 3 years here, it takes some time. It takes some time to build the case. So he's diligently pursuing it. My own view is that the evidence shows that we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness. There was something far more troubling here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And if people broke the law, and we can establish that with the evidence, they will be prosecuted.
The president is very frustrated. I think you obviously know that about Andrew McCabe's. He believes that people like McCabe and others just were able to basically flout laws, and so far with impunity. I
think the president has every right to be frustrated, because I think what happened to him was one of the greatest travesties in American history. Without any basis, they started this investigation of his campaign. And even more concerning, actually, is what happened after the campaign, a whole pattern of events while he was president. To sabotage the presidency, and I think that, or at least had the effect of sabotaging the presidency.
Will FISA abuses really be prevented going forward, given what happened here, where FISA judges are not given critical pieces of information, material facts about evidence that inform the government's okaying the surveillance of American citizens?
I think it's possible to put in a regime that will make it very hard either to willfully circumvent FISA or to do so sloppily without due regard for the rights of the American person involved, and also to make it very clear that any misconduct will be discovered, and discovered fairly promptly. So I do think we can put in safeguards that will enable us to go forward with this important tool. I think it's very sad, and the people who abused FISA have a lot to answer for, because this was an important tool to protect the American people. They abused it. They undercut public confidence in FISA, but also the FBI as an institution, and we have to rebuild that.
So when you listen to that very closely and play it more than once, because wow, there is a lot in there to unpack. He basically says, yes, there are crimes that were committed, and when we get our case built, we're going to nail them. I mean, really, that's what I took away from it. So listen to it, and I've got the link to the full clip down below, because it was an excellent interview, the 2 parts that I've seen. I don't know if there's another part coming or what, but the parts that I've seen, very good and full of lots of things that are little gems in there that you need to hear. So as always, I'll put the links down below. They're in the description, so you'll have to, like if you're on a mobile device, you'll have to click a little triangle or something like that to make it pop open. Or if you're in a regular browser, just scroll down and there's show more, and you click on that and it'll pop it open. Okay, so that's where we're at on that. I thought it was very interesting, and you needed to hear that. Well, then this article is from the Washington Examiner, and Schiff won't stop weaponizing intelligence absent DOJ indictments. Plot Against the President author. So this guy wrote a book, Plot Against the President, and he basically says that Schiff isn't going to stop because this is what he does. This is Lee Smith is the one who wrote that. And it's called The Plot Against the President, The True Story, How Congressman Devin Nunes Uncovered the Biggest Political Scandal in U.S. History. There you go. Maybe he's the 17th letter of the alphabet. Devin Nunes. That would be funny. He says he's skeptical that anything is going to happen, really. And he says here, while there are no arrests, they're going to continue doing this. And I think that's true. But I also think some arrests are coming. So hang in there. And it's just, we got to take care of this immediate situation right now. So, you know how it goes. You got to deal with one thing at a time. They're throwing everything they can, including the kitchen sink almost, at POTUS because they are desperate. They need him to stop. Well, Catherine Herridge came up with this. She has these transcripts between George Papadopoulos and a confidential human source working for the FBI. And this is 2 weeks before the 2016 presidential election. Well, it's very interesting when you read through it. Here's the actual article on CBS News. And when you read through it, basically George Papadopoulos said, no, the Trump campaign had nothing to do with Russia. The Trump campaign had nothing to do with hacking the DNC emails. So, yeah, it's really very interesting, and it upholds everything Papadopoulos has been trying to say. If you go all the way down here, and they nicknamed him Crossfire Typhoon. Okay, I just can't imagine Papadopoulos on that, unless they thought he was going to be the big wind to blow things down. I don't know, but there's a lot of swearing on the actual transcript. They, have blocked it out here, but you don't think anyone from the Trump campaign had anything to do with the, over at the DNC? And this is the confidential human source. No. Really? No, I know that for a fact. So Papadopoulos has no problems with this being out there because he knows he didn't say anything wrong. And he told them, no, the Trump campaign didn't do anything wrong. And down here, he even says that it was illegal. Yeah, he said, first of all, it's illegal, to do that. So he just goes through, and every time he's rejecting what they're trying to say. They were trying to lure him into saying something wrong so they could use it against the Trump campaign. And he didn't take the bait. I mean, I gotta, hats off to Papadopoulos because he stayed strong and he did not say things that he shouldn't have said. I mean, he was honest, and he said, no, shouldn't have been. And they, you don't think that they hacked the DNC. And he said, could be Chinese, could be the Iranians. Notice the first thing he says is Chinese. And then he says, it could be some Bernie supporters. I thought that was kind of interesting because we all know about a certain staffer who was a Bernie supporter that actually is the source of the DNC emails. So anyway, I will leave this, and then here it says, Case Agent 1, which I think is Joe Pientka. I can't remember if he was number 1 or number 2, but maybe it wasn't Case Agent. I don't recall. It's been a while since I've read the report. And so they said they had this similar recorded conversation with Papadopoulos in September, and their assessment was that Papadopoulos' denial was a rehearsed response and that he did not view the information as particularly germane to the investigation of Carter Page. So they were calling it rehearsed response because it didn't fit in with their narrative. So anyway, I'll leave this article down below so you can read it, and you can read this one, the Gateway Pundit one, about it, because they kind of summarize some stuff, and it's basically the same things that's in the CBS article. But always good to go to the actual source if you can. Well, Chuck Grassley is none too happy with the Democrats right now because the Senate Democrats are blocking additional paycheck protection funding. So they're trying to get this legislation through to give American small businesses more money to meet their payroll because they had a big bunch of people go for the money. And not surprisingly, but the small businesses are desperate for it. You know, when you have a bigger business, you have a little more padding usually in your finances. But for small businesses, a lot of them are running on shoestring budgets. So what do? I mean, if the money's not there, the money's not there, and they have to lay people off. And the whole point behind this part of the legislation that they included was so small businesses could keep people employed. And they're trying to get more to put into that. And of course, on the same day that we learned 6.6 million more Americans have filed for unemployment, Senate Democrats decided to block additional funding for a bipartisan program that they agreed to just a few short weeks ago. These funds would have helped small businesses keep people on payroll, providing stability and security for families and workers across the country. Senate Democrats blocked help for workers. That's not how you govern, especially in a crisis when the health and livelihood of so many Americans are on the line. Yay, Chuck Grassley. You know, he's working for it. But I tell you, the Democrats are not being nice. And so, of course, you know, you get CNN, I think it was, that decided they were going to report. Let me go down here. This was the original. CNN published a breaking news headline that read, Democrats block GOP-led funding boost for small business aid program. That is totally accurate. That's exactly what was happening. And you can tell from Chuck Grassley's little statement right here that that is what he was talking about. But CNN changed it because it was not flattering to the Democrats. So now the headline reads, Senate at stalemate over more COVID-19 aid after Republicans and Democrats block competing proposals. Oh, isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just, this is how it is working now, that they cannot at all say anything bad about Democrats, and they cannot at all say anything good about Republicans. This is kind of an interesting article to read. This is from the Washington Examiner, a good one. And then I wanted to show you this because, you know, you may not hear much about this if you don't live in this area, but Chicago is not doing well. And it really doesn't have to do with the coronavirus pandemic. It's the violence that's going on. There's still shootings and everything happening in Chicago. It hasn't slowed. And this is the problem that they have. It's not only straining resources in Chicago hospitals, but also on the streets. Despite the stay-at-home order, police responded to 19 shootings Tuesday night, 6 of which were homicides. So Chicago's still a dangerous place, and it's because it's run by Democrats. So kind of tough on that. But anyway, so I'll leave the link to that down below if you want to read more about it. And then, of course, guess what? Sarah Carter puts this out because now, all of a sudden, this Covington and Burling, which were the lawyers that Flynn had at first, suddenly found some additional documents in Flynn's file. Oh, gee, imagine that. And see, the judge, Emmett Sullivan, had told them that they were supposed to turn everything over to Sidney. And she didn't get it all. And she's been trying to get it. And that was, I think it was back in July of last year. So it's been a long time that they were already supposed to turn this stuff over. And they didn't until now. All of a sudden, they just magically find new stuff. So, yeah, she's got more work to go through all of that, but here's the article if you want to read more about it. There it is. So, yeah, that's happening. And then this, now I told you that I deal with evidence and speculation. This is speculation. I'm putting this out there just because it's a thought to think about. It may or may not be true. I tend to think it probably is not, but it's a possibility. So I thought I would share it with you. And this particular researcher says that he thinks the first indictment, which one is going to eventually come, is going to be, he says, should it be against the one who ordered the illegal spying or against an operative that followed the order? Well, it's kind of hard to say, and it's based on the 17th letter of the alphabet's, comments that he's made before. And of course, Barack Obama's Secret Service name was Renegade. And then recently we just saw a post from the 17th letter of the alphabet that had Malik Obama's tweet. And so, I don't know. Is there something going on? It's very possible. And maybe that is going to be who the first indictment is. Honestly, I don't know at this point. I'm thinking it's probably going to be somebody smaller like Comey, or Brennan would be good. I'd like to see him. But I'd like to see them all because they have all betrayed us. And so I would like to see indictments for everybody. I'd like the Oprah, you get an indictment, you get an indictment, you get an indictment. Just give them all indictments. But it also has to be done very properly. If you listened in that clip with Barr that I started out with, he said it takes time to build these cases. And this is the issue, folks. I know you're all impatient, but there are a lot of things that have to fall into place first. And one of the things is what I showed you in the last video, where we have to have that federal executions put back in place. And it's got to be on solid footing. Right now, it's not. It's in the appeals court. And it may have to go to the Supreme Court before it is ready to go. But that has to be in place first. And then there are cases that have to be meticulously built, because this is the only shot we're going to get. And we don't want any of these people to escape. Nobody should escape from this. They all should be held accountable. So that's just a thought. Again, I'm not sure I agree with it, but hey. And then if you're not paying attention on Twitter, you may not notice that some things are happening. Well, this is an Oprah picture, and if I'm not mistaken, it looks like there's a bump there underneath her leggings or her pants. It's a little square, you can see. You tell me, what is it? I think it's kind of odd. And so, is it an ankle monitor? I don't know. And this one, I've seen before, but yeah, again, there's something there. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They're not baggy pants, and you can definitely tell that there's a lump under there of some kind. She's wearing something. What else would she be wearing that would be that size and proportions? So that is the thought. And these are pictures they posted on their own Twitter accounts. So it is definitely from them. But what's going on? I don't know. But always interesting to have those. If you happen to be on Twitter, you know that Joe M. got suspended. Now, I don't know if he's suspended or if he's banned. But I do know that he's temporarily not on Twitter and not allowed to post. And it was because of this account right here. So if you're on Twitter, my suggestion is you find this person and you block them. Because what they're doing is going around to a lot of Patriot accounts and they're reporting them and getting them suspended. So if you block them, there's a lot less chance that they can do that to you. So if you have it, it's at Propaganda BRC. So please make sure that you do that so that they cannot, cause you any trouble if you're on Twitter. Because we don't need people suspended. We've got enough of that. And then check this out. This was one of the reporters during the briefing. And he asked a question. President Trump asked where he was from. And he said he was from Taiwan. Well, that's not exactly the truth. He was born in Taiwan, but he works for Chinese state-owned Shanghai Media Group, a propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, folks, think about this. These are the people that are in the press that are in these briefings in the White House. So we have people from the Chinese Communist Party sitting in our White House. That should be a shakeup to all of us. Plus, the real issue is, do you know how many reporters can go in there now? Because they have them sitting every other seat. There's not very many. Why are we wasting a seat to somebody from the Chinese Communist Party? who's checking them? Who allows them in? I don't know, but this is kind of crazy here, folks. I think there needs to be a little more control over who they're letting in to be these reporters asking these questions. I mean, it's bad enough we have to listen to Acosta and some of the other goobers. So let's just keep out the Chinese propaganda people, okay? We don't need to deal with them too. Well, this is an article from the American Thinker, and I think this guy does a good job kind of discussing, can we trust these statistics? Because they don't seem to line up. Now, he had another article here that's along the same lines, but it was more focused on New York City. And he had in that this thread from Twitter that had more of the data and everything. So I thought it was a really good article too. But in this one, he's talking more about how they deal with this Dr. Annie Bukacek, and she is discussing, and here's the YouTube link, but I'm going to show you in a minute. She's discussing that these death certificates are being manipulated. So if you look at that, here is her summary, okay? This is just the very end of it, but the whole thing, it's 17 minutes long. Oh, there's that number again. And I really recommend you listen to it because she does a good job just laying it out. And she is a doctor, so she has filled out her own share of death certificates over time. But here she is at the end.
To reiterate, if a patient tests positive for COVID-19 and dies from another cause such as pneumococcal sepsis, it may be considered accurate to say that person died with COVID-19, not from COVID-19. Yet the CDC guidelines list they list this case as one more COVID-19 death, and they go to the next questionable death. They label that as COVID-19, and it goes on and on. You could see how these statistics have been made to look really scary when it is so easy to add false numbers to the official database. Those false numbers are sanctioned by the CDC as of their memo yesterday, April 4th. I have made physical copies of those memos in case more people start looking at their website and they decide it's too much truth for us. I hope I was able to make my point. The real number of COVID-19 deaths are not what most people are told and what they then think. How many people have actually died from COVID-19 is anyone's guess. Again, God only knows. But based on how death certificates are being filled out, you can be certain the number is substantially lower than what we are being told. Based on inaccurate, incomplete data, people are being terrorized by fearmongers into relinquishing cherished freedoms.
I mean, wow, she really nailed it. Great little talk here. And she lays it out. I mean, she just says this is how the procedure goes for filling one out. And this is why it can be so nebulous how they're getting this data. It's not factual. So when they're reporting all these numbers, how can we ever know if they're true or not? Because there's so much leeway that a doctor has when they're filling them out. So anyway, I just thought that I would share that with you. You really need to check that one out. The link will be down below. And then, of course, the Open Society Foundations has to weigh in on the COVID-19. And guess what they want to have happen? This, by the way, for those who don't know, this is George Soros's little baby here. To slow the spread of COVID-19, it is critical that we stop bringing more people into the system, and what they mean here is like the prison system, and release all those who should not be there in the first place. Yeah, that's what we want. We want more people. Let's stop locking up people who use drugs so that they can go out and do things. And so basically that's what they're trying to get the people released. That's where that is coming from George Soros. So you know it's not a good thing for our country. Well, I wanted to point this out to you, those of you who follow the 17th letter of the alphabet. Guess what? Matt Gaetz is kind of talking like he does. January 15th, first COVID-19 positive case arrives in USA. And also January 15th, Pelosi transmits impeachment articles to the Senate. So this one down here says, does Matt Gaetz follow you-know-who? So I thought that was kind of interesting. There probably are several of them saying that down there. But yeah, that is true. And that's something we need to point out to people. Is that a coincidence? Really? Do you think it's a coincidence? I don't think so. Okay, then we have this article by the Daily Caller, and this is about the polls asking whether people think that calling it the China virus is racist. Well, look at what it says here. CNN opinion writer Jill Filipovic similarly argued that using the term Chinese virus was xenophobic racism and compared it to scapegoating European Jews for the Black Death. Other journalists, from Vox writers to the New York Times editorial board, have denounced the president's use of the term. But the American public seems to disagree. The three Harris polls, all of which are from late March or early April, showed 52%, 54%, and 52% of Americans agreeing with Trump. So, hey, how do you feel about it? Do you think it's okay to call it the Chinese virus? I think it's kind of funny if you see on the Epoch Times, they always call it the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party virus. So this is the article up here. But yes, the majority of Americans do agree with him calling it that, and we're okay with it being called the China virus because that's where it came from. I don't know why you would deny it. Then I thought this was kind of interesting. Mike Pence has banned the coronavirus task force from CNN until the network decides to broadcast the full briefings. See, what they were doing is they broadcast just a little bit of Trump talking, and then they cut away and have their talking heads interpret what he was saying and fact check him because he lies all the time. I mean, this is really what they say. It's like their mantra over at CNN and MSNBC and everywhere else almost in the mainstream media, that they say he's lying all the time. Whenever he talks, he's lying. Yet the data seems to be supporting what he's saying. But anyway, it says the Office of Vice President Mike Pence will no longer allow members of the White House Coronavirus Task Force to appear on CNN unless the network broadcasts President Trump's daily press briefings in their entirety. And they're whining. They're saying, oh, they're too long. Okay, CNN, you are a news network. What else do you have to do but report news? Isn't that really what your entire network is about? Reporting news? These press briefings are news. But they don't think so. So yeah, I guess Birx and Fauci can't get their time on CNN unless CNN decides to start, putting the whole press briefing out there. I just think it's kind of funny. And let's see, it says after Trump leaves the podium, CNN frequently cuts out of the White House briefing to discuss and fact check what the president had said. Because he just lies all the time. Oh, it's just crazy. That's what they keep saying. And so I think it's really funny. And look at this. Okay, Morning Joe Scarborough, there's no public benefit to this briefing. The networks should all cut away. There's no public benefit? You know what? I've watched them all. I think they are very beneficial. I'm learning a lot about what's going on. I'm hearing how they're addressing different problems that arise, what the problems are, and, that they are tackling them. And the different voices that we hear coming in from, different people, it's letting me know that it's not just a single focus, that they're trying to address it by using different fronts, having the businesses come in and work with them, and they're talking to the governors. And to me, it's very comforting because I'm finding out that they really are doing a great job handling it. Well, of course, that's probably what MSNBC and CNN don't want people to know. And of course, Rachel Maddow has also called on networks to stop broadcasting the daily event, accusing them of helping to propagate misinformation. If it were up to me, and it's not, I would stop putting those briefings on live TV. Not out of spite. Oh, yeah, right. But because it's misinformation. Honey, you are like the queen of misinformation, if you are really a female. Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know if she is or not. She sure acts more like a dude, just in my opinion. And it's going to cost lives. No, your lies will cost lives. Oh, but anyway, that's this one right here. And then here is something for the press pool. Guess what? They all have to get tested now. I think that's kind of funny. But you know what? It actually is a very good idea, because I could see some of these people, especially the 2 Chinese ones that are infiltrating our press pool. I could see them coming in and trying purposely to infect our president or infect people in the press pool. I could see it. So I hope that they're not too all get their nose out of joint about this, but it'd be interesting if somebody shows up as positive, wouldn't it? Jim Acosta. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not wishing it on him. I don't wish anybody to get this, because it's not a nice illness to have, and I understand that. So I don't want anybody to get sick. But I do wish they'd stop letting Jim Acosta into the press pool. So this one I thought was pretty good too, because the Office of the DNI smacked down CNN. As we told CNN earlier today, this story contains inaccurate information. What CNN was trying to do with this story is they were trying to say that the ODNI, the Office of the DNI, told Trump about this virus back in November. And he knew in November, but didn't do anything until January. You know, it's just crazy. First of all, China has tried to say that their first person wasn't ill until, or they didn't detect it until December. But there is information, and I've covered it before in this channel, that, yeah, November was actually when it started, which was just a month after Event 201. So, yeah, it's just been kind of a series of things happening. And CNN tried to put this lie out. Well, this is very unusual for the Office of the DNI to do this, but they did. And they came out and said, now look, that's not correct. And they told CNN to their face. And the last thing I want to share with you is this article, because this is disturbing, I think. Gavin Newsom declares California a nation state. And if you read this, I mean, it's a very negative article. It comes from Bloomberg opinion section. So it is an opinion piece, and it's somebody who is suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. It's very obvious when you start reading it. But California this week declared its independence from the federal government's feeble efforts to fight COVID-19. Feeble. And perhaps from a bit more. The consequences for the fight against the pandemic are almost certainly positive. The implications for the brewing civil war between Trumpism and America's budding 21st century majority. Embodied by California's multiracial liberal electorate are less clear. That's scary. Yeah. That we're going to be someday run by the multiracial liberal electorate in California. Now, I don't mind multiracial, but liberal? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, they just think that they can buy things and give them to the states that need them better than the federal government. But you know what? This right here, the whole concept of this, and this isn't the first time Newsom has said this, that he's called it a nation state. Isn't this kind of what happened at the Civil War, that there were some states that thought that they should be independent from the federal government to do what they wanted to do? Yeah, that was the Civil War. So I'm kind of thinking that this is setting California up in a bad position if they continue down this road, because while they do put a lot of money into the federal taxes, they take out a lot of money from our federal funds. So while they may be claiming that we can't get along without them, I'm not so sure about that. And I think we need to really keep that in perspective, that while they do put a lot of taxpayer dollars in, not as much as they used to, because a lot of the rich people have gone to other states where they're not getting taxed out the wazoo. So it's not as much as they think, and they think they have a very powerful position there because of that. But again, what they're failing to remember is that while they wouldn't be putting anything into the federal government, we wouldn't have to put anything out for them. And I think that might save the federal government quite a bit of money. I'm not sure. But anyway, so something to keep our eye on, I think, because a little disturbing when they start using this type of terminology, because it's getting that stuck in people's minds. So when they decide they want to make more moves on that, then people will be more likely to go with it. Because people have to hear things more than once before they jump on a bandwagon, usually. Not always so with some people, but for the majority, they have to hear things several times. They get acclimated to it, and I think that's what he's trying to do here, that he's trying to get Californians acclimated to the idea that they are more powerful than all the rest of the states, and so they should be able to call the shots. And Trump's not going to let that happen. So it's going to be interesting to find out what happens in California, because we've been told we need to watch California. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but we'll see what happens when you have a naughty state that doesn't follow the rules. We're going to find out, aren't we? So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.